Welcome to Diverse and Inclusive Leaders, the Fireside chat where I interview the most inspirational and thought-provoking leaders of today and unearth their unique stories of diversity and inclusion to help inspire, educate and motivate others to make the world a better place. Today I am absolutely delighted to be joined by the incredible Leann Hearne. I'm actually very blessed to say that Leann is a good friend of mine, but she's also a real inspiration and she's had many years of experience that I'm hoping she'll share with us this morning on the show. Leann is the Chief Executive of First Ark Group, where she holds group-wide responsibility from everything from HR, shared services, customer services, business transformation, charity and social investment and home building. Prior to joining First Ark Group, Leann held a wealth of experience working for the likes of German manufacturers where she was managing director. She's also held a number of executive positions on boards and non-executive director positions working from social groups through to housing groups. Welcome to the show, Leann.
Thank you. Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I really appreciate it. And obviously I know that you've had incredible experience, obviously prior to being where you are today, and I know that you're very passionate as well about diversity and inclusion. And I was really hoping that perhaps you might be able to share a little bit about what you're up to at the moment for our audience who are keen to hear how you came to be where you are today and a little bit about some of your experience to date.
Okay. So as you've already said, I started my career in a very different world from where we are now. So I actually began as a PA, and like most people who've had an opportunity to succeed, it is at the hands of other people who spot something in you and organisations that are forward-thinking that give you the opportunity. So I was PA to a managing director of a chain manufacturing, so it's in the trawler industry. And I ended up going through into the sales positions, went into an engineering business, became an expert in various parts of engineering, and then went through to eventually working in a German-owned manufacturing business where I was MD of the UK and European operations. And then it was whilst I was there that I got to a certain age, and I'm not going to tell you what it was, but it was a little while ago, and decided that I wanted to give something back to the community and began to work as a non-executive director in a social housing business. And because I wanted to learn more about what the business was, because I had no knowledge of it and felt that I needed to know before I could actually carry out my role, I went out into the community and worked with the local teams to understand what happened and just got hooked. Just completely got hooked, and decided that that was the career that I was going to take. Now I had to take a huge salary drop and step down in status in order to cross into the sector that I'm in now. That was just under 10 years ago. And I began working for a retirement service that built retirement villages for older people, and then I worked for a company called Riverside, which is one of the biggest nationals, and ran their care and support business, so homeless services, veteran services, working with older people, young adults with learning disabilities, and then transferred over to the general needs, which is the normal housing business, if you like. And then I joined First Ark as Chief Exec just over 7 months ago. So, and First Ark is a housing group. So one of the businesses in the group is a social housing business, and then we also have a charity that does great works for the community in which we serve. We also have a building company because we need to do our bit for the housing crisis, so we build homes, and obviously we have a social housing and a facilities maintenance business. So it's a really good opportunity to join. We have some challenges in the sector, and we have some challenges in our business around regulation, but as a business we've got a bunch of really good people. There's just over 500 people work here, and I can honestly say that I've met most of them and they all absolutely want to do the right thing for communities and help people who are in difficult situations. So it's a great business.
Fantastic. That is such a journey, coming from starting as a PA through to being Chief Exec of First Ark.
Still a great typist.
Mm-hmm. And tell me, if you don't mind, for all of our listeners and our viewers who are tuning in today, it'd be great just to rewind the clock a little bit and kind of maybe talk to us a little bit about the young Leann, because it can't have been easy rising the ranks through German manufacturing business, I bet there probably was not that many females or really any females at all at that time. Talk to me about those kind of experiences, because you were clearly very driven, and obviously I know you personally, so I know that you're a very confident individual, but talk to me about how that was over the years, and obviously striving forward to become chief exec finally, and find yourself in this position. It's a huge leap from where you first started.
I think there are a couple of things, one of which is I'm a great one to want to learn. So I'm not an academic fan. I didn't go to university, and I do learn by reading books, but actually I'm a great fan of learning new things. So whatever job I've had, I've wanted to learn something more about something new and poke my nose into other areas. And I think you do that when you're younger with a bit of naivety around you. And to be fair, it wasn't me that thought, I really want to do this. It was me that saw the sales team and thought, I'm really interested in what they're doing. And I worked as a bilingual secretary, so I was working with other countries, particularly France. I was doing a lot of translation work for France. So I was trying to understand the technicalities of the products we sold and how I could translate that, and in doing so just got really interested and curious about, would you believe it, chains. Then you find people who think actually there's somebody there who's a bit tenacious. So I think I was genuinely naive. I didn't really notice that there were very few females in a senior leadership role until I became MD at Segania, which was the manufacturing company in Germany, and when I rocked up to the first board meeting and realised I was the first MD of any of the subsidiaries, and when we had the board meeting I was the only woman around that board table with about 20 odd people.
And how old were you then, if you don't mind me asking?
I was 36 when I was made MD, and I was also the youngest, so I was the female and the youngest. And then I realised that 2 or 3 tiers below me there were equally no females until you got down to middle manager. And that's partly because of the culture of Germany at the time. They're a bit behind us around women coming back to work and opportunities for women to return to work. But nevertheless, across the countries that we worked in, there were very few women. So that was my first real notice, and as I say, I was in my mid-30s before I'd really noticed any difference. And then made it my mission to make sure that I wasn't the first and the last. So we brought through a number of females in the area in which I worked, and then again probably in the non-exec function as well, because we still have a massive gap in most organisations. I mean, the FTSE 100 are quite problematic, but even in the social housing sector, which is known for its variety, we don't have enough females on boards. And even on our board here we have 12 board members and 3 females. That's not good enough, and however many years it has been, I'm now 54, so it's a number of years and we still haven't got to the position where there are great numbers of females. But I think naivety and other people's help and a bit of curiosity has probably helped to get me where I've got. And knowing that I was doing something that made a difference to somebody's life is the bit that made me want to do it a bit more.
That's so interesting. And it's really interesting that it wasn't a premeditated decision. It's just been that you've been curious, you've been inquisitive, and you've been continually asking and managed to find your way to those positions of seniority, which I think is fantastic as well, not just for women, but for women and other minorities, to actually see someone who back then looks different, sounds different, is actually there, able to be almost a role model, I guess, to aspire towards. And like you say, there are very, very few women and also ethnic minorities within the FTSE. I think it's 7 female chief execs that there are now within the FTSE 350, which is just incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Some of the work that I'm really proud as a sector that we have in the social housing sector is we're quite forward thinking around other groups, because as you know, I've told you before, it's not just about women. I'm so over just women. It's so that there are so many other groups that really are minority groups that we don't give the opportunity to, and it's more about equality than actually giving women a step up. So for example, I feel really strongly about parental leave. Now I was on my second child, who is now 21 and graduating tomorrow, I had to go back to work when she was 11 weeks old. because we didn't have maternity benefits there, and we didn't have the kind of arrangements we have now for parental leave. What we have here at First Ark is parental leave for both males and females, so they can share it. It isn't just about the woman being a parent, it's about men too. We also have agile working as a programme, because it's really important to me that dads get to see kids on Christmas parties and Christmas plays, and not just women. And the other one is, it's important for me for people to be exactly who they are. So we're a strong supporter of the LGBT community. We sponsor the Pride March in Liverpool next weekend. We have a lot of opportunities for people to be exactly who they are, whatever that may be. And we also do a lot of work with young adults with learning difficulties who would otherwise not get the opportunity to be employed. We train them, we work with them, and we've got some great examples of how everybody who wants an opportunity we can support one way or another. There is a place for everyone.
Brilliant. So what you're saying is, it's not just about diversity and inclusion, but it's diversity, inclusion and belonging, and equality, and making sure that we not only champion those various minority groups, but we actually bring everyone together, keep the conversation open and make it equal, i.e. it's not just about maternity leave, it's about paternity leave, it's about increasing these elements like agile working, which thereby improves the possibilities for us to actually have more diverse organisations.
One of the best things I witnessed this morning is my Executive Director of Finance, who came into work at 9:30. And he was later than most people, including the 3 PAs that were sitting nearby, because he was dropping his daughters off at school because it's his turn this week. Now, when we start setting the tone at an executive level, then you start to mean that it's acceptable for other people. And that's the whole point. Work is not the place you go to, it's the thing that you do. I don't mind where you do that, as long as you do it. And if that means that you want to work at home for the morning because your kid's got some kind of sports, it's summer, isn't it, the sports games, or you're taking children to school, then whether you're male or female, we should make it available for both of you to have the opportunity.
Absolutely. And I think First Ark is a really good example of what businesses can be striving towards. And, it's not about kind of, how do I put it? It's not about naming or shaming businesses or anything like that. I think that's a great thing about diversity and inclusion, is actually businesses are at all different stages of the diversity and inclusion continuum, but actually constantly trying to improve and showcasing businesses like First Ark, and especially the social housing sector, like you say, which is very ahead of the curve, generally speaking, is good to be able to kind of educate and inspire other organisations to actually start improving these various different areas within their businesses.
We're not brilliant at everything. I mean, this is one of the areas that I think the social housing sector is really good at. We're also really good at putting roofs over people's heads and helping people who are vulnerable. That's our raison d'etre, that's what we do. But as a sector, we're quite old-fashioned in lots of ways. So this is where businesses across the piece can learn from one another. And true courageous leadership is stepping out of your own office, not just into the business next door or to the sector that you know, but into a different sector. Somewhere where they can give you something you currently haven't got. So as a sector, we do great things around equality and diversity, but we're learning from one of our partners around the corner, QVC, who have a really great programme about health and wellbeing in the workplace. We've got other organisations in the area that we work that do great things in different areas. We're not great at IT as a sector, the social housing sector, compared to what I came from in industry. We still haven't got in social housing what I left when I left manufacturing in 2000. So 2008. So we have really moved on in lots of ways, and in other ways we've still got some catching up to do. So it's not about us being brilliant, it's just that we're quite good at some things, but we've still got a way to go. We can all learn from one another.
I couldn't agree more. I think it is about learning, sharing, educating one another. And I think especially within the world of diversity and inclusion, actually learning cross-sector. Like you say, there's so many businesses now that are talking about diversity and inclusion, and, a lot of them are quite siloed within their certain kind of sectors, whether it be kind of FMCG or retail or charity, etc. But actually kind of bringing everyone together and bringing those voices and those businesses together to learn the best from each other, I think is absolutely critical.
There's too many statistic setting for me. There's a lot of targets around, we need to meet this statistic or that statistic, and we need X amount of percentage of this group in our business. For me, it's about just giving everybody the opportunity to be the best version of themselves that they can be, and us putting a framework around that to support them. Now, the area in which we work here in Knowsley hasn't got a real diversity around race and colour. Liverpool as a region has quite a strong religious background, and so you find a lot of Catholicism and Protestants that are here. You don't find such a diversity around religion. Doesn't mean to say that we can't do E&D, because what we have got are other groups that are diverse and need supporting. So I think it's around finding solutions for the area in which you operate and the people who work for you and with you and the communities in which you serve. And that is about really directing your services towards them, rather than just having the tick box that says E&D is about this race, this religion. No.
Absolutely. And broadly, it encompasses so much more than that as well. I know that we mentioned before, there's things such as mental health, there's education in the community, there is disability, there's lots and lots of broader facets almost to the traditional diversity and inclusion continuum.
Well, mental health as well today is a big agenda. I've got a daughter who's just graduated, and she will tell you herself has had quite a lot of anxiety problems throughout the 3 years at university. She's not the only one. There are too many suicides in young people, and as I say, I've got experience of having that quite close to home. So we do need to address some of those agendas. What we have here is we have mental health champions. We have the mental health agenda in the workplace, and we have various awareness days throughout the year. So we pick up different themes, including mental health and including protected characteristics, and we pick a theme and regularly work towards it. As I say, this weekend it's going to be Pride, because it's a big festival up here.
I bet.
But mental health is really important to us. We make sure that we've got support networks around for people. One of the things that we have as a benefit for our staff is when we have a health and wellbeing package, including Medicash benefits, and one of those benefits is around giving people support by counsellors who've got issues for themselves. They don't talk to us, it's completely confidential, but we need to have a support network of all sorts of bags of tricks for staff nowadays, because people are dealing with a whole range of issues in their private lives, and we need to be able to support them to get the best out of them in their work life. Some people will need time off. That works for some people. I, for example, one of those people, when there's a crisis, I need to be at work because it takes my mind away. It's different for everyone, and we need to have a bag of tools that allows us to treat people as individuals, not as a statistic.
Absolutely. And I think mental health it's still a slightly taboo subject, especially around executives and those who are at the board level. Obviously I'm fortunate that I get to meet very senior individuals day in, day out, but I think it's one of those things which is quite difficult to talk about. And I guess, as a leader, there is a huge amount of pressure. People looking up to you, people looking at you, media, etc., making sure that you have this strong face on it all. But actually, chief execs are people as well at the end of the day, and possibly more likely to suffer with mental health issues than other individuals within the organisations.
Somebody gave me some advice about 25 years ago that the way that you would learn best is to show your vulnerability, and it was the best advice I was ever given. So I've been a member of the Academy for Chief Executives for 18 years, and I've met a range of people from various sectors in that group and learnt from them. It is when you show your vulnerability that you are able to learn the most. Equally, showing your vulnerability means that people around you trust you more. So me pretending that I'm perfect, that I've got all the answers, that nothing is going to get me down, and the fact that we currently have a challenge with a regulator around us is easy peasy, is stupid beyond belief. How I have got the teams around me to support me and each other is by being dead honest, and being really truthful about the challenges that we each face. And so when I've done blogs and vlogs for the staff teams, I've actively said, this has been great and I'm celebrating. I am a half glass full girl, so I am generally more positive than not. But there have been times when I have been challenged by the issues that we face. And the responsibility of everybody's life and career in your hands can sometimes get a bit much. when you share that with people and you share it with your staff teams and let them know that you would welcome their feedback or support, it's surprising how many people will come back and give you that. And you don't have to pretend to be something perfect, just the same as a parent. You don't have to pretend to know all the answers. You don't know the answers. People buy your books, but your first time as a parent is a real lesson, and you have to pick up along the way, and you continue to learn right the way through until you eventually become a grandparent, and I'm not there yet. But we all have to take that journey. The same goes for your career. Nobody expects you to know everything firsthand. I haven't been through this situation with a regulator before. Other people have. So they're helping me and I'm helping them. And that's what teams do. It isn't about just one leader being perfect. It's about teams working together. And whatever your level in the organisation, you've got something to offer that I currently don't have, and vice versa. So it's about sharing and honesty, showing your vulnerability, and that to me is courageous leadership. It isn't about being perfect, it's about being not perfect and being honest about that.
So, on the subject of courageous leadership and also vulnerability, I wondered, was there a time specifically as you've been making it throughout your career where you've experienced a really challenging moment, or you've, I don't know, come out the other end of a particularly challenging situation that you hadn't experienced before?
Oh God, every single day something presents you with a challenge. I think the one that probably defined my future was the moment when I was, I'm guessing about 22, when I was encouraged by the manufacturing director, where I was the PA, to go and talk to the group chair, at that time it was an executive chair, around me transferring into sales. And he had two secretaries either side of the corridor, so I remember walking through that corridor with an appointment, and it was in the days before proper computers, because he just had the FT on his desk and nothing else. And essentially he asked me why I was there. He was keen to understand what I was there. I thought it was going to be a positive meeting, told him what I wanted, and he laughed and said, "Why would I do that? You're a girl." Exact words, I've remembered them, they're ingrained in my head. The conversation didn't go any further. I was clearly too young to deal with that. Said thank you very much, stepped out. It was my father that said, "So is that where you're going to leave it then?" Because my father taught me to ride a motorbike and change engines in the same ways he taught me to have a horse, and my mother taught me to do girly things. He always taught me that you could do whatever you wanted to do. And so his view was, is that going to be it? Is he going to define your future? And he absolutely didn't. And I left that organisation, went to work in a wheelbarrow manufacturer's business, progressed straight through, and within 18 months of that meeting, I was sales manager for a big national engineering distributor. So that was a challenge that I turned around. And then, interestingly,
You must have felt really vulnerable at the time when
I was terrified, absolutely terrified. And there was no one else around me who could support me, because my boss was also of a view that, but you're a really good secretary, so I don't want to lose you. So it wasn't as if I'd got anybody else to support me apart from the manufacturing director, who was quite young himself. Interestingly, I'm still in touch with him. Yeah. It turned out that we lived in the same place, the same town. So I found out that. I know, what's the odds? So things happen for a reason is my view. The other moment was, having worked in engineering and on factory floors and with guys my whole career, I can genuinely say that I haven't experienced horrendous issues of chauvinism. I haven't, surprisingly. The place that I experienced the most chauvinism was in a company, I shan't name them, was in the service industry. I was only there a year. I realised after day 2 it was the worst career move of my life. But I learnt more in a year than I had done in the previous 5, because you always do, and you learn from your adversities. It was quite difficult to have to deal with the fact that I sat in a meeting and somebody asked what car I drove, and as a girl, why did I think I should be there, and they asked me to leave. So I have experienced some of that in places that I wasn't expecting it, and in places where you would normally expect those challenges.
And how did you get over that? Because for a lot of people who, I'm sure those who are listening in have, maybe had difficult times in their careers or even in their personal lives, it takes quite a lot to bounce back from pieces like that. Because if you weren't who you were, could you have ended up thinking, right, okay, that's fine, I'm not going to carry on, I'm not going to try, I'm going to continue on being a secretary? Not that there was anything wrong at all with being a secretary, but other than your father, I guess, what is it that's made you go, right, do you know what? Just going to carry on, just going to keep pushing forward?
Ooh, that's a bit of a searching question, Leila. I think, I don't know whether I know the answer, actually. I think all I can say that I do know is that I didn't consciously have a clear plan. I didn't actually say, right, I want to do this career and that's where I wanted to go. I just knew that I wanted to do work that interested me and that I could have an impact. I knew more when I hit 40, when I wanted to have an impact socially, and that's probably what changed. But in those early years, I think it was more of a bit of a determinant, in that somebody said I couldn't do anything, and I'd never been brought up in an environment where somebody said I couldn't do anything. The question was always why can't you do it? Both my parents said to me, there's no such word as can't, there's only a frame around it. So I think I had got the idea that you couldn't tell me I couldn't do it. That isn't to say that I didn't go home and cry my eyes out, because I absolutely did. I got in the car after that meeting and I got to drive from London up to the Midlands, and I had to keep stopping at service stations on the way, crying my eyes out, because it was how can I deal with this? How can I deal with this? Eventually, I had a conversation with my line manager to say, this is what happened. I don't know what you want me to do. You'd asked me to attend this strategy meeting. I don't know what you want me to do. I can't influence those people. And it was him that said, right, we're going to deal with this. So I don't think I can take the badge of honour and saying I really dealt with it. I think the only badge of honour that I can take is that I stuck to my values, principles and honesty. So truth is really important to me, and my values are really important to me, and fairness and equality has always been a really strong driver. So I think all I did was act naturally to my values, which is tell the truth and then say it wasn't bloody fair. Mm-hmm. So how are we going to deal with it now? And then somebody else helped me because I invited and welcomed help, I think is probably where it went.
And is there any advice that you might give to anyone who's kind of tuning in today, who's thinking to themselves, oh goodness, I would love to be in Leann's position one day, or I'd love to get a promotion, and having a couple of challenges, I don't know whether it be even with confidence or something like that, or scared to speak out? Is there any advice that you might want to impart at all?
I think that point about sticking to your values, be really clear and work out what your values and purpose are. So over the years, I've had the privilege of learning master practitioner at NLP and a number of other things I've done along the way. So I've had the privilege of working with people who've helped me understand that you need to know what your purpose and your identity is before you can identify where you want to go with that. So I have done work on that on myself. So I would definitely encourage people to do that self-development, do that looking inwards and assessing what it is that will really make you tick, what's important. If that's money, then be honest about it. It isn't my driver. I've been lucky that I earn a reasonable amount, but it was never my driver. So work out what are the values that matter to you and what drives you to get up in the morning, and what would be the real ideal world, what's the purpose that you've got. And sometimes you may need a coach or somebody else to help you do that. I think if I was looking back at myself in my younger days, then
I've just taken one of my next questions, so that's perfect.
Okay, here's the answer to that question, Leila. If I went back to myself younger,
the young Leann
had a bit of a chip on her shoulder because I hadn't been to university, and I got regularly told at various steps, you're the only executive around the table that hasn't got a degree. And at one point I thought that was really important. So when my daughter was about 6 months old, and I also had an 8-year-old son at the time, and I worked about 120 miles from home, I thought it was a really great idea to go and do night school and do a degree. I did 3 years of it, nearly killed me, and eventually thought, why the hell am I doing this? Because I'm just compromising the whole of the family, as well as the fact that I was working abroad at times as well. I would say don't look for the certificate or look at how you look. Concentrate on how you feel and where you want to be. Being is the most important thing, not doing or looking, because it was very much about, do I look right, have I got the right clothes on, have I got the right certificate? Neither of those things are relevant. It's about having the right values, being true to yourself. If determination is what's needed and you haven't got it, then maybe be happy with where you are. Not everybody wants to go through their career, but if you want to do something different, work out what your purpose is, why you want to get there, what values are important to you, and then invite people to help, because amazingly there are so many great people out there who will just give you their wisdom and help you get where you want to get.
Absolutely. And I guess that leads quite nicely on to my next question, which, what is authentic leadership to you?
Really, really simple. Being you. Being you is okay. And if being you isn't okay and you have to pretend or be careful, or like we've just gone through a chat where I haven't sworn, which is frankly a bonus. That would normally not be the case.
You can bleep it out.
But I'm in an organisation with a bunch of people who know that that's one of my faults, and I'll either get called out in it or they just let it go. If you can be who you are in an environment, then you're in the right place with the right people around you. If you have to come to work and you have to pretend to be something different, you're in the wrong organisation. It's as simple as that. Being authentic is about being true to you and your values, and being able to be the best version of you, whatever you is, in that environment. And if that means you have just come out as gay, if that means you have got some form of disability, or you've come out and been honest about the fact you've got a mental health challenge, or you're just a mother who's struggling, or a father who's struggling, or you just got some challenges in your family, whatever those challenges are, however those issues arise, if you can come to work and be with a bunch of people who accept that and you feel comfortable sharing it, then that's authentic leadership. If I've created an environment where people can come to this building completely comforted, knowing they could share their issues and they can be at work exactly as they are at home, then I've done my job. Simple as that, I've done my job.
Thank you so much, Leann. That's such valuable advice, and I've learned actually a huge amount from today, and I'm sure that a lot of people will have as well tuning in. So I'll say thank you so much for being on the show, and just to summarise for all of our listeners, who I'm sure have learned a huge amount as well from today, is really to be yourself. I think Leann is an absolute testament to individuals who are going throughout their careers, really kind of striving, breaking through those glass ceilings and actually being yourself. Now, I particularly loved the story that Leann's just shared with us about how she's worrying about not having a degree and, ultimately caring what other people think. And I think when it actually comes down to it, this real true authenticity and this this sense of belonging that comes through when I speak to you, Leann, and clearly this kind of environment that you create for all the employees around you, I think is so important. So for those that are tuning in, hopefully you feel this in your workplace. If you don't, perhaps it's time to have a conversation with someone or reach out to someone that you can trust, that you can speak to, and maybe discuss some of the issues that you're having. Thank you again, Leann, for being on the show. Really appreciate it. My name is Leila Mackenzie, and you've been listening to Diverse and Inclusive Leaders, the Fireside Chat with Leann Hearne, Chief Executive of First Ark Group. Thank you so much for listening. You can find us at www.dialglobal.org/podcast. You can also find us on our YouTube channel, Dial Global, which stands for Diverse, Inclusive, Aspirational Leaders Global. Look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you so much for watching the Diverse and Inclusive Leaders podcast. Please do feel free to hit the like button below, or if you'd like to receive future notifications, do ping the notification bell here at the side. If you're interested in the audio version only, you can find it on the following streaming platforms. Any extra info and descriptions will be in the links below. Look forward to seeing you soon.